Okay, we are back with another episode of the Big Thoughts podcast with your host
Your host, Fred.
and Gordon.
Welcome back if you are a recurring viewer, and welcome if you're new to the team.
And again, we're here with the visuals. I know you guys been asking to see my lovely face. Here it
And
is.
Here it is.
And today's topic is how to engage with your audience. So I guess we can
Interesting.
take turns and what we see as great tips for you to use going forward. So I think for me, the first thing you should always do is implement it in your speech rhetorical questions. Okay. The reason for that is because it will allow you to dictate the thought patterns of your audience and ensure that they're engaged. So I'll give you an example. If I'm speaking about public speaking, I could ask, is this an area that you are looking to work on? Now, if that's the case, this is what you need to do going forward. So by asking that rhetorical question, straight away you're asking yourself, okay, is public speaking something I need to work on? And what I did is I added a pause to give them that opportunity to think. And then I provided the solution as a result. So I'm directing the thought patterns of the audience. And then at the same time, as well as using rhetorical questions, you can ask direct questions to your audience, okay? And I always do this to ensure that they understand what I'm saying. Has anyone got any questions? Would you like a bit more clarity? And open up the floor as well. Because what I don't want when it comes to our workshops, classes I do by myself as well, is that they enjoy it, but by the end of it, they're asking themselves, what did I actually learn?
Mm-hmm.
So by utilizing the rhetorical question and ask them directly at appropriate moments, I'm ensuring that they do understand. And that's the key thing. And it links back to what we spoke about in the last episode. Do they understand me? And questions really does help. And as a result, they're more engaged. Because when they do understand you, they just want to listen to everything that you're saying.
That's a very, very good point. I think a way you can engage your audience. So Tony Robbins does this very well. He speaks to like thousands of people, but he uses singular language. So he may be talking about a situation and he's like, what are you going to do about it? He won't say, what are you guys going to do about it? He'll maybe be talking about he may be asking a certain question, like, have you been in this position before? He will say, have any of you been in this position before? Using singular language makes the person or the people feel like you're speaking to them directly. And that is a lot more engaging because especially when you're speaking to larger groups of people, you may not necessarily be in a position where you can ask them a question for them to reply to you. However, if you use singular language, they'll feel like you're speaking to them. As a result, they'll be a bit more engaged.
And even on top of that, I would even say using simple language. Sometimes we feel as though we need to showcase our vast vocabularies to show our intelligence. But simple language ensures that not only you have less to think about and you feel a lot less pressure, but even for your audience, they actually understand you. So as much as I could talk about all these complex topics and terminology I could use, by using simple language, which is appropriate for my audience, I ensure every single person is following. And as a result, they're engaged. Okay?
100%.
Because that level of understanding is so important.
Another way to build rapport with your audience is storytelling.
Storytelling.
So what are the 4 P's of storytelling?
People, places,
Personal.
personal, pictures.
Fantastic. And I use all 4 when I do my presentation. Number 1, pictures. So you say a picture says 1,000 words, and my slide deck or my presentation is of pictures, usually just pictures. Second of all, with the storytelling, I make things personal. And making things personal actually is very helpful, especially if you're talking on a subject that may be a bit boring, that people may not see the relevance in it.
Especially if people don't even know you.
Exactly. Making it personal. So something I do before my workshops is I tell people about my journey in public speaking. So if I do want to go into schools, is I tell people about my journey when I was in school, balancing education with athletics, and eventually being able to do well in athletics, even though I still got a degree and I went to university. So storytelling is something that can make whatever you're saying very engaging.
And I think with the storytelling, it's important to be conscious of your audience. So when you're going to schools, you're speaking about your school experience, coming to the UK when you was 13 and all the difficulties you went through. going to university, for example. And if you're speaking to a much older audience, for me personally, I always speak about my experiences navigating through the corporate environment, going to interviews, my good and bad experiences, and showing vulnerability as well. Because as a result, they realize, okay, this guy is like me. And with that relatability, they're more inclined to actually listen to you and your message. And that links to what we say a number of different times. It's about being authentic. Not trying to paint yourself as this perfect person that has no flaws, who's made no mistakes. We all do. We're human. But by creating that relatability, people feel because you need to, the main thing is, you need to give people a reason to listen to you. And the reason why they should give you their time. And by developing the ability to tell stories and making it personal, they get that reason up front. And especially for me, like you said, using that in the first 5 to 10 minutes, I already get everyone's attention. Because they realize, oh, I actually like this guy. He's just like me. Okay, I want to learn.
Before we go any further, let's dive into vulnerability. So for you, Gordon, what is vulnerability?
Vulnerability to me is allowing yourself to be seen, especially as a man. And we had that guy that came to one of our taster classes. He always feels this pressure to put on the act. He was about 6'4", very big, probably goes to the gym every single day. And he feels though he has to always put on this brave front. And the struggle for him was actually being vulnerable with people, allowing people to actually understand that he has weaknesses. And I think there's a key thing, allowing your weaknesses not to hold you back. But it's actually understanding that it's part of your journey. Because I'm comfortable saying that I was once an introvert. Sometimes I like to say I'm a recovering social introvert, and this is something I'm always dealing with. But I don't see that as a bad thing, because other people go through this. Because it's easy for me to say, oh, I'm super confident, I have no level of nerves. But then why would people listen to me? Because I just think I'm just this person from a completely different country, planet. I can't connect with him. But by being myself and showing my weaknesses, as a result, people are more inclined to actually follow my journey, to listen to me as a result.
Interesting. I hadn't heard that one before. So allowing, not letting your weaknesses hold you back.
Yeah.
That's a good one. For me, vulnerability, similar to what you're saying, is allowing yourself to be yourself, no matter who you're speaking in front of. And I think that's really, really important, because often we put in certain rooms where we feel like, I need to speak a certain way. I need to act a certain way. And that, it's funny because vulnerability, it has quite negative connotations, that word. We think of someone vulnerable or someone weak. But allowing yourself to be yourself is the ultimate form of strength, because the easier thing to do is to just put on a mask. And I'm sure you've all heard of fake it till you make it. Now, the thing with fake it till you make it is that I've tried it. You never improve. You never see improvements.
Because you're ignoring the challenges.
You're ignoring the problem.
Yeah.
You're just pretending it's not there and putting on a brave face, putting on a mask. And are you not tired of masks?
Yeah.
Sure, COVID
All
has
throughout
made
COVID,
you tired of masks.
Every
right?
shop we went into,
Had to
remember
put on a
your
mask, right? So we don't believe in embrace it and fake it till you make it. We believe in embrace it until it improves. The biggest problem with nerves and anxiety is that we wish they were not there. So we do everything to run away from them. And when we feel them, we see it as a sign of danger, as a sign of we shouldn't be doing the things that we are about to do because we're nervous. So we're just about to go into a driving lesson and we think, oh my goodness, I'm so nervous, I shouldn't do this. No, embrace it and think, I feel quite nervous right now. What can I do now and next time to reduce these nerves? Embrace it so it improves. And I always say treat nerves like cold weather. If it's really cold outside, we can complain about it and then go out in a vest and shorts and then just be freezing.
Yeah.
Or we can prepare for the cold weather by putting on a jacket, a scarf, and some gloves. And once we leave the house with a jacket, scarf, and gloves, we'll still be a bit cold because it's cold outside. The same way, rather than just complain about nerves, let's prepare for them. But even once you've prepared for the nerves, you'll still feel a bit nervous and anxious.
Yeah. So it's also about having that, like you said, that level of acceptance. Because you have that understanding that irrespective of how many times I'm presenting, I'm going onto a stage, the nerves will always be present. But like you said, if you look at the weather report for the next day and you see that it's going to be a blizzard, you're going to put on a jacket. So the key thing is preparing for it. And there's proven solutions, which we touch on almost every episode, that helps you to deal with it. And at the same time, like you said, despite the nerves, I can still do a good job. It's not going to stop me. And one thing I always say, you never look as anxious as you feel. We had a lady that's currently in our August cohort, came on the stage, and honestly, it was her best speech.
So good.
Fred and asked her, what's the difference you made? You came across really confident. She showed her hand and said, I was shaking. Nobody could tell. What she doesn't realize is that she wasn't seeing the nerves as an obstacle. It's like, I'm still going to do it anyway. Creating that bias to action, I'm still going to go to the front and do my best. And even if she finished and felt as though it wasn't good, all right, these are the things I need to work on. So don't be hard on yourself.
100%.
With time, you will improve.
So funny, even on an episode about engaging the audience, we've spoken about confidence. But anyways, back to engaging your audience. Because I really wanted to address the vulnerability thing, which is a way to engage your audience, that vulnerability. Another way is to add some interesting statistics to it. So we have public speaking workshops, and the first thing that we do is that we have some really interesting stats on the top 5 human fears, according to a study in the States. And one of the fears in that top 5 is the fear of public speaking. And prior to that workshop, you probably hadn't ever thought that public speaking is one of the biggest fears in the world, whereas in fact it is. And to be fair, it's actually the fear of judgment and the public perception that actually is the real fear.
To the public speaking.
But point is that having a very interesting statistic that relates to the thing that you're talking about is an interesting way to engage your audience.
100%. And even on that topic, we always say your fears are assigned to the potential outcomes. So when it comes to public speaking, like you said, it's the fear of judgment, the fear of it going terribly. So as a result, because of that vulnerability, you're now seen as a weakness because you're thinking the worst case scenario. But then when you understand that, irrespective of how things go, I'll be fine. So it's about having that reframing and having those honest internal conversations with yourself to understand that this is a journey. We always say public speaking is an infinite game. It's something that you're not going to improve overnight. Some of the habits some of us have, maybe is using filler words, looking at the floor, or we're just constantly nervous. With the practice, you will improve and you'll overcome it. And that's the thing that we all need to understand.
Yeah. So what's another way to engage the audience?
So I'll say another way to engage your audience, and something I do, because naturally I'm very funny, is humor.
Hey.
Okay? And the reason why I feel as though humor is important is because you allow yourself to come across a lot more personable. And by giving your audience a much more enjoyable experience, they're going to listen to you. They will be engaged as a result. Now, if this is something that doesn't come naturally to you, then talk to me. I've got a few jokes in my back pocket that I can share. Obviously, it'll come out of course, but I will share it with you.
Yeah.
But I always try to have humor. Yeah. Okay.
What's one of your go-to jokes?
Okay, what's one of my
go-to
go-to
spot.
jokes?
Put you on the spot.
So one of my go-to jokes, which I've started using, and you did actually laugh.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, before I introduced myself,
Yeah,
I said, I'm a recovering socially awkward person, so please bear with me. And that gets a few jokes. And I was like, oh, that's quite funny, because I am also socially awkward.
Yeah.
And by doing so, it's like having a laugh. It's like, all right, this guy is a cool guy, because people have these misconceptions when it comes to our classes where it's going to be very serious.
Yeah.
The coach is going to come in a suit or a tuxedo and be very professional. So it needs to go perfectly. But by me starting with a joke, already you realize, all right, it's definitely not what I expected. And there's no reason for me to be nervous as a result. And once I help them to alleviate the anxiety that they're feeling in that moment, it does help their overall experience.
Yeah, because I've been to a lot of these other classes. They are very formal. Yeah. And that's probably why
like
people
Toastmasters.
come in. Yeah, very formal. There's Toastmasters, other public speaking practice in central London. They have a very formal structure. So that's why people come into it not knowing what's going to happen. One of my jokes that I've started using like a month, and it always works. So
sure it does.
It always works. So similar to what Gordon said, I think a previous episode, is that, I wish the only way to get better at speaking wasn't speaking, right? I wish I could just give you a pill to help you improve, and I probably can, but I won't. And we're just going to do it.
To be fair, I actually nicked that one.
Yeah.
I heard you use it one time. I was like, damn, that's good, man. I'm taking that. I'm taking that. He's getting too many laughs. I need that.
So that's always a good one. So yeah, humor is good. If it's something that comes natural, it's a good way to build rapport with your audience. Another way to engage your audience is your body language. Because I remember once I gave feedback to one of our students who was one of the people that, as usual, some people stand static, no arm movement, no measured movement around, just static, okay, frozen, and they were speaking. And I gave them some feedback to use the influence zone and to do the 3-step movement process. After doing that, I asked the audience, what did you think? And someone in the audience said, I was so much more engaged
Yes.
because there was more to look at. I wasn't just kind of pinching on his words. The arm movement also engaged me and grabbed my attention. So actually, body language is a way to build rapport and engage your audience.
And automatically, you come across a lot more confident as well. It's quite funny. When we tell people to come up the first time, they're always in a very fixed position.
Always.
Once we tell them to utilize the influence zone, measure movement around the stage, they come across confident, but they say, I still feel just as nervous, maybe even worse. So with the movement, it helps you to come across a lot more professional, confident, and then people engage with you a lot more. Because the thing that you want to stop doing is putting your hands to your side or behind your back. Because what you don't realize is this is actually distracting your audience. Because when your hands are behind your back, they're thinking to themselves, is this guy hiding something? What's actually going on? And I've actually tested this before and people are actually thinking that.
Wow.
But then when you actually use your hands as an extension of your words, it adds to your delivery. Something we mentioned in the earlier episode, measured movement helps you feel a lot more comfortable, natural, and of course people will listen to you a lot more.
Cool. So, new segment in a podcast called Scenario.
Scenarios.
I just made it up. So I got a scenario for you.
Yeah, go on.
The scenario is that someone is quite new to their team at work.
Okay.
There is a team meeting. They've been put on the spot to present. They want to build rapport with their team.
Okay.
What should they do?
What should they do? First of all, don't whisper. Wrong thing to do. Wrong. Don't do that. He's a coach, but don't do that. So what I would say is, and this is something I took from, I think, a video that I watched, which was reduce uncertainty, you reduce anxiety. So what I do all the time, and this is something I actually highlighted to Fred earlier, is to start with a conversation before I get into the presentation. So what I'll do is I'll come to the front and I'll say, okay, how's everyone doing? Are you okay? You'll get that feedback. They'll respond to you. And then when you feel as though I'm now present in the moment, you now start. Now, the benefit of taking this approach is you come outside of your head. It's no different from when you're having a conversation with friends or family members. Because you're having that conversation, you're not thinking about yourself. You're now putting the focus on your audience without even realizing it. And then when you feel as though I'm now ready, then you can get started. So just start with that conversation. It could be about absolutely anything. You build a rapport straight away, and then you go from there. Because rather than going to the front, okay, hi everyone, today I'm going to be speaking to you about our Q3 figures. And this is what's happened. Whoa, there's so much pressure. So start with that conversation, giving myself some time to become present. Then as you mentioned earlier, focus on the introduction, and then I'll go from there.
That's some super solid advice. What's your scenario for me?
So my scenario for you is I'm a very senior exec in the company, and everyone always assumes I know everything. Now, how can I come across relatable while also still maintain that superiority in the company?
That's a very, very good question. So even within our own organization, what I tend to do, especially when speaking to members of the team, is making myself as relatable as possible. And interestingly, one of our recent students spoke to me, and she said that she used to work for a startup, and during her time working at the startup, she would run through brick walls for her managers. She's now moved on to work at one of the biggest software companies in the world, and she hasn't got the relatability with her managers. And as a result, she doesn't want to work as hard. Like, she does her thing, but she wouldn't go above and beyond. And I asked her, what is the difference? She said, in the startup, the managers were relatable. So when she was going through a really tough time, they wouldn't just question her or tell her to do better. They would sympathize with her and help her understand that when they were in her position, they also struggled a little bit.
So it's having that emotional intelligence.
Exactly. And then after they sympathized with her, they gave her constructive feedback. So if you're in a senior role and you want to maintain your senior position for people to respect you, as well as be relatable to the people, I'd say sympathize with them. Help them realize that you're also a human being. Put yourself in a position where you share certain parts of your journey. So with vulnerability, I always say share what you've got over. Share what you are comfortable with sharing. But it's important that you share certain parts of your journey, especially from when you were once in their shoes. Relate to them and then give them constructive feedback rather than give them the constructive feedback first of all.
And I think that's a really good point, because one thing we always mention is putting the focus on the audience and the message. So in this case, it's putting the focus on the audience. Okay, let me put myself in their shoes. As a result, it's easier for you to understand how they feel in that moment. And I'm sure you can lean on your own experiences where, because I've gone through similar difficulties. And by you opening yourself up where it's appropriate, they can now buy into your vision. Be like, all right, this is someone that I want to follow. This person can lead me because they understand me.
I think to answer literally the building rapport thing in one sentence, how to build rapport with the audience is to put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
So when I speak to students, I put myself in a student's shoes and think, what do students care about right now? What are the struggles that they're going through? That's what I speak about. When I'm speaking to an audience of adults who struggle with public speaking, I put myself in their shoes. What are they struggling with right now? These are the things
And
that I
as a result,
address.
it's easier to shape your message.
So important. So the number one question, if you want to truly build rapport with your audience, is how are they thinking right now? You put themselves in their shoes and then you build your message. And of course you have rapport because you're going to be speaking from their vantage point.
So it's about, if you don't know already, doing the research to understand their pain points, what they need to work on, what they need to understand. And that will help you find the answers that you're after.
100%. The ideal situation is if you've been in that situation before.
It's easier.
So it's so much easier because you know you've been that. If you haven't been that, then researching and understanding their pain points is the number one thing to do to build rapport. Yes.
100%.
So in this episode, we've taught you about how to build rapport with your audience, which is something that is super important, especially if you want to take your public speaking to the next level.
And if you want more tips, follow us on Instagram, Big Public Speaking. Daily tips every single day. So give us a follow and send us a DM if you want to join the community. DM community. And you'll join the conversation on there.
What else can they get for free?
So for free, they also get our PDF on how you can become a confident public speaker and communicator. And this is free. There's no strings attached. All you have to do is send us a DM saying you're interested in receiving the PDF, and then we'll share this with you.
What if someone is in the community? What if they've read through the PDF, but they want more?
They want more? Oh, yes. We have the course, the online course. And it's only £29.
For £29, you can have a bespoke online course that will teach you everything. When I say everything, it will teach you everything you need to know. If your question is, what do I need to do to be a more confident speaker? You will get all the answers that you need in our online program.
And I've got a question for you.
Yes.
What if they've done the online course and they say, I need more practice? What else is there?
Oh, yeah. We got our monthly accelerator workshops.
Yes.
So the next accelerator workshop is September the 15th. It's a Friday. It is from 6:30 to 9 and it's at Work and Play. The theme of this workshop, it is body language and how to increase your confidence on stage.
Exactly.
The importance of coming to the workshops is because if you've gone through the PDF and you've done the online program, you have all the information. Now it's time for what?
The implementation.
It's time for the implementation. It's not all about getting the information, but it's about the implementation. And actually, often, the problem isn't an information problem. It's a behavior problem.
That's it.
So come and change that behavior at our next workshop.
And you're only improving your public speaking through
Public speaking. But listen, what if someone's in the community?
Okay.
They've done the PDF.
Done the PDF.
They've gone through the course a couple of times.
Done through the course.
They've come to the accelerator workshop, but they want a transformation. They want to go from where they are now to be a confident, conscious, competent communicator. Then what?
We have our transformation public speaking program, which is 4 weeks.
Okay.
With not one coach, but 2 coaches.
Wow.
Where we go through how you improve in your body language, the art of storytelling, how to build a speech and to engage with your audience. This is 12 hours.
Wow.
And you also get one-to-one sessions.
How many minutes of one-to-ones did they get?
2 hours. And the
What?
course is 12 hours. So that's 14 hours in
of
total.
learning. You know what's crazy? That they say that 20 hours